All right, everyone, let's talk about some ways to jazz up our photos. Here I have a photo of some party girls and everything looks cool, but I need the image to have a little bit more excitement, a little bit more movement to it. So we're going to jazz that up by adding just a few simple effects right here in Photoshop. So to begin with, we're going to define this image as a pattern because we're going to want to be able to paint back in parts of the original image a little later on. So let's go into the Edit menu and go down here to Define Pattern. And you can go ahead and see that it's defining the entire image. If I had an area selected, then it would only define the area that I had selected. But since I don't have a selection, it's going to look at the entire image and define the whole thing as a pattern. So we'll go ahead and do that. Click OK. Now we can go on and start applying our effects. But I don't want to do it to the original layer, so let's go ahead and create a duplicate. And let's start changing up some things here. Well, first thing is I want to give this just a monochromatic color. So I'm going to press Command or Control U, or you can simply go under the image menu down here to Adjustments. And we're going to go to Hue Saturation. And I'm going to click on Colorize, and you'll see that it gives me a color overlay of that whole thing. And I can change the color by moving the hue slider. And of course I'm going to go with a blue, and let's give it a really increased saturation there. And I think that looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and click OK. There. Now, what I want to do is create a brush that's going to have a layer style on it to give this a little bit more excitement, almost like a cool lighting effect. So let's go over here and create a new blank layer. Grab our brush tool. And I'm going to get a relatively small soft edge brush. As you can see, let's just go with a 17. I think that looks pretty good. And we're going to go into the brush options and modify this brush a little bit. So let's click open the brush options here. And inside the shape dynamics, I want to take the size jitter all the way up to 100. I'm going to go ahead and leave pen pressure on. I am, in fact, using a tablet, so we'll go ahead and leave that where it is. I'm going to turn on scattering, and we're going to make sure we've got both axes checked on and take this all the way up to 1,000. Then over here in the brush tip shape, we're going to highlight that and increase the spacing considerably. And you'll notice what's happening with the brush. It's not making so many dots around in there, so we'll take that to around 150. I think will be good. And let's close that, and let's go into our image. Again, making sure we're on a blank layer, as you can see right here. And I'm just going to paint around the image. I'm going to kind of avoid this girl's face right here because I'm going to bring her face back in a little bit. So I just want to avoid applying that effect around there. So I've gone ahead and painted and scattered those dots around. Now let's apply a layer style to this. So I'm going to go into the layer styles rather, and we're going to do outer glow. And here I'm going to go into, instead of applying a regular color fill, I'm going to apply a gradient. And let's go in here and choose something crazy. Let's do this wild rainbow here. And notice the weird effect it's giving me there. But I'm going to make it a little less intense. I'm going to increase the size considerably. And you'll notice it's giving me various color, a lot of color variations there, almost like real lights would in effect because of that gradient. So let's increase that so it's not so harsh. And I think that looks pretty good. So now we'll go ahead and click OK. So coming together, looking pretty good. Well, I want to do a couple more things here. I'm going to re-highlight that original layer, or this colorized layer that we've got. And we're going to go into the filter menu and go down here to blur. And I'm going to choose radial blur. And we're actually going to do a radial blur this time. Although most of the time I'm using this filter, I'm always using the zoom blur. But I'm actually going to use the spin this time. And I want to put the targets right up here in the upper left-hand area of the image, kind of about where this little circle is right here. I kind of want it to circle around that. And I'm going to set the amount to a very low number. I'm actually going to do about 10. And we'll go ahead and click OK. So you can see what's happening. It's really blurred that image like crazy. But before I do anything else, right after I've applied that filter, we're going to go into the Edit menu and go down here to Fade Radial Blur. And what this will do is basically allow me to undo it in degrees. So if I do a Command Z, if I go under Edit and do Undo, it's going to undo the whole filter. But if by doing it this way, I can actually undo it in degrees. So I only want to undo it 25%. So we'll set that to 75. So it's only applying the filter at 75%. So that looks good. And we'll go ahead and click OK. So we can still see the faces in there a little bit, but we can still see the blur that's happening as well. Well, I'm also going to do that same thing to this layer that we've got all these little dots on. So let's go into the filter menu. Again, since I'm going to apply the same blur, I'm going to go ahead and select this very first item, but I'm also going to add the Option key or the Alt key when I select it. And it will open up the window and allow me to change it. or change the settings here, which I'm going to do. I'm going to take this from 10 down to 5. And we'll click OK. You'll see we get a little bit of a blur on those lights. Again, let's go into the edit menu and do a fade. And let's bring that down to 75. So we can start to kind of see the original lights in there a little bit, but we're also seeing the blur as well. Looking pretty good. Click OK. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to bring back in the girl in the middle, almost as pretty much as she looked in the original image. Well, I do have the original layer, and I could probably put a mask on these 2 layers or do whatever. Don't want to do that. I made it easier by defining that pattern we did in the beginning. I'm going to go up here and create a new blank layer right at the very top, and we're going to go into our toolbar, and grouped right in here with the clone stamp tool is the pattern stamp tool. It's got the little checker bar next to it. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and inside our menu here we scroll down, and there is our image that we defined. Go up in the options and make sure that you have a line checked on here so it's going to paint in the right way. And let's bring this to normal. And all I'm going to do is take that soft edge brush, relatively good size, and just bring that girl back in ever so slightly. So it's like we're painting with the image, which is quite literally what we're doing. We're painting with the original image on that layer. So you notice it's on its own layer, so we can do whatever we want, make changes to it, or do whatever. But there you have it. So we've given this image a lot more energy and a lot more interest, but we're able to maintain or isolate our subject, which is this girl in the middle, by bringing her back using that paintbrush defined as a pattern. Very cool stuff. Try it out on all your own images and have fun.